Today we're going to be looking at a Denon T620. It is a CD player and a cassette recorder, as far as I believe. Cassette recorder part has got auto reverse. The CD part just plays regular CDs, but you can alter the speed and do various bits and bobs. It's got some commercial sockets on the back, so we can look at those in a minute. And fortunately it's missing a knob there. Now it does power up. On the tape side it seems to play fine in terms of I can get the audio out of it, both channels, but when I try to play the CD side, the left channel is white noise and the right channel is fine. And what's interesting is for a split second at the beginning when you first play the track, you can hear something coming through on the left channel and then it just turns to noise. So it could be a problem with the actual digital analog converter, and equally it could be an issue kind of before that or after that, before it gets to the amplifier stage. So the amplifier stage I'm fairly happy with because obviously the tape side's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this apart. You may have seen these stickers on here, so this has clearly been sold with a defect and I picked it up as part of a job lot. So we've got the CD drive this side, which does play fine, no issues there, pretty quick loading. Big transformer there for the mains, but it does feed into the actual main PCB boards. The reduction in voltage is handled at the back here, so I've got to be a little bit careful in between powering things up. I don't want to give myself a nasty shock from those big capacitors at the back there. So it seems to have some cooling in here, but not anything too special. There's no fan. There's just, what, 4 heat sinks here. Chip that I think the issue could be in is this one here. So this is a PCM69AP, and this side is the digital side as far as I believe. It goes into this side, and then outside is the analog, and then this would be the amplifier part and the part that handles the logic, I guess, for the front panel and also the cassette. So let's spin this around. There you go, you can see the cassette there. It may need just one of the bouts changed. Reasonable access there actually, so that's quite good. Now there's some cables attached to this board. There's a few earthing points I think as well by the looks of it. And there's a secondary board here to handle these outputs here. So on the back we've got the XLR outputs and possibly inputs actually. Yes, we've got a balance in here. We've also got the phonos here and tape mix, so there's a tape mix there and CD there, so everything's kind of matched with phonos. There's also a remote socket there as well. So this board, I don't know if I have to move that out of the way to get access. I might have to. We'll see. But I'll start trying to take this PCB board out. So with that XLR board out, the phonos actually are part of this bottom board. So capacitors visually look okay. I'm not seeing anything that particularly stands out as needing work, but I will examine in a little bit more detail and try to work out what the pinouts are and see if I can work out the left channel. So this is the underneath of the digital to analog converter chip, and this chip alongside is a digital filter chip. So this is a SM584 BS or 1BS. Can't quite see that. So that's that chip. Notice what I think are a few dry joints over the suspect area. What I'm going to do is get the soldering iron out and just give anything that looks a little bit suspect going over. So that's my next step. The left channel input, that's the digital input before the analog part comes out, is this pin here, and this is the output just opposite. So I'm just going to kind of trace my way back and do some soldering based around this pin and the tracks leading up to that. Okay, I've gone over and redone some of the solder joints. I'm going to get this back into the machine. If I still have the same issue, then I will spend a little bit of money on a replacement chip, and I will try to swap that out. So I've reassembled it. I've put all the screws in, the main screws anyway. I've put this board in for the audio, and I've screwed in the main PCB. So let's power this up now. Check I haven't broken anything. Okay, so it seems like it's fine. Let's play. Ooh. I can't hear any hiss. Okay, so it's not all good news. The hiss has reduced from me mucking about with the soldering iron, so I don't know quite why that would lessen, but it has. It is still audible, but nowhere near as loud as it was. So I've obviously done something, maybe just heating up part of that chip has caused that issue. So my next step is to look for this chip here and get a replacement one, because as far as I can tell, without looking through all the components, that's my really best way of approach. And if that doesn't solve it, then obviously I know that the issue is possibly in the IC before it, but that's a little bit more tricky to desolder and solder a new one back on place. Not impossible, but I think I'll start with the easier option first, which is this digital analog converter chip. I have decided before I go down that route, the route I said about replacing the chip, just to take the CD drive out and to inspect the board on that, just see if there's anything obvious. 4 screws to take out. It's a little bit tricky to reach. You do need a long screwdriver, and I had to just slide this front panel forward just so the screwdriver would reach. Anyway, this is the CD drive, so we can tell that all the logic is on that main board, and I guess what we've got here on this laser part is the control part going in and focusing the lens, and then the other part is the information being read, so that'd be the digital ones and zeros. Then we've got the motor for the actual moving around the laser assembly. That's that, the blue wire. Over here is just the standard motor for the tray, open close. So not too much in there. It's a Sharp, from what I can see, MCS M27A, and it's a unrecognisable motor there, BF 310T 11400. So do I look at this part and see if there's any weakness here that's possibly not outputting all the ones and zeros on that left channel? And how is, I really don't know how the ones and zeros for the channels are kind of stored on a CD, so that's another thing, isn't it? After Googling, I decided not to obviously do anything with this, because it's all one unit really, the way it's all put together, and it's unlikely to be the CD transport. So I will definitely go and order a new DAC, and that'll take a few weeks to arrive, but that will enable me to finish off this video. So hopefully for better and not for worse, but it's worth a try, I think. I tend to use these bags, it's quite useful, the ones that you can reseal and open again. And I've got all the screws I'm not going to put into the case and into the back, into the bag, and I'll keep that with that so I don't lose it. I'm just using one screw to hold the lid on for now. Park it in the garage and wait for the chip to arrive. Today arrived in the post a Burr Brown PCM 69 AP, which is the exact one that I'm hoping to replace in the Denon. So I'll just show you. I've got a pack of 2 actually, and these were sourced like everything else from China, and arrived pretty well wrapped, as you can see. There's a couple in there. So my task now is to take the machine apart again and to replace the chip here. So my hunch at the moment, I've gone around and resoldered parts that looked a little bit iffy. My decision is to have a go at changing the actual DAC. So that's what I'm going to do. My first task then will be to remove the existing chip, and looking on this side there's a little bit of solder here to remove, so I'm going to remove as much solder as I can so I can push the chip through. So it's almost out now, the original one, as you can see, just standing up on its end. Now it was quite a tricky task. There you go, one leg's still there. So you have to remove a hell of a lot of solder, and the only way I managed to do it in the end was to have quite a hot iron and to have one of these suckers and just using that multiple times. That seemed to do the job, so that was good. There you go, that's it. That doesn't look too bad. And there's the old one I'm going to replace. Here I've bent the centre ones over to hold it in place while I solder the new one in. Okay, we're looking good. So that was the quick part. Just took about 5 minutes to do that, so you can see the points here. And yeah, looks like it's all okay. So I'll just check the board because I had little bits of solder that came off when I was using the suction pump. So I will just make sure the whole board looks fine, and then I will replace it inside the unit itself. Now for the moment of truth. I've reassembled the board, and I've got one screw holding that back one in at the moment in case I've got to take it all apart again. I can't remember how the drive was as well, so I'll probably need to put a tape in and just check the belts. But let's see if this powers up. I think I've got everything plugged in. Okay, so it looks like it's, yeah, it looks like it's loaded the CD. And let's just whack the volume up. All right, let's press play. Can't hear any hiss at the moment. Excellent, it's working, both channels, both sides. So that was a good hunch, wasn't it? So my process of illumination led to the DAC being replaced. And I'll stop that because I don't want to get copyright. I'm playing some dodgy CD that was in here when I got it. So anyway, fantastic news, fantastic. So replace the chip, which was the PCM69AP, and I've got both sides working now and no hiss. So that's really good. Now I don't know if these Denons are worth particularly much. This one is obviously straight forward, quite basic. I suppose in some ways it's probably quite useful for someone to have because you can record to cassette, and obviously there's a lot of interest beginning again in cassettes and Walkmans in particular. So with that said, this might be useful to someone who wants to make some recordings or some CDs to play on their Walkman. But yeah, I'm amazed it works, because normally when you tackle these sort of things, yeah, you don't get very far. But anyway, the reason why I went and replaced the DAC, from what I remember, was the cassette side was fine and that played on both channels. So that led me to start looking at the CD side. I don't know if this is a particularly great deck to have, not as good as Tascam's, but nevertheless, it's a good achievement. It's got a CD pitch, which is missing its knob, but I won't be using that side of things. And it's even got a tape speed that you can adjust as well. So it's quite a versatile deck actually. I have decided to change one of the belts on the cassette because I think it is a little bit weak. Now that won't be a problem. What I need to do is move this flat bout out the way so I can get access to this thin bout, which seems to have plenty of give. So this one luckily doesn't need to be changed. It's a little bit more complicated. Here will be my replacement bout on the right, and on the left is the original bout. Well, I did have a tape in here, and unfortunately when I tried to do auto reverse, the tape got stuck inside, and I've determined that the auto reverse head is a little bit sticky. So although you can kind of coax it into doing auto reverse and then going back to normal play, which works fine, trying to go back auto reverse again on its own doesn't work. So I think it probably needs a look at the spring that's possibly not pulling it enough, or maybe some more grease that needs removing and updating. Something you can do on this deck, very easy, is just slide the cover off the door for the cassette, and then that gives you good access to adjust the head so it's playing the stereo separation well. And there's also a chance to add a little bit of grease underneath, as you can see. So the issue is with that being a little bit sticky. So when you just play it forward and stop and do your usual stuff, and it's fine. But as soon as you try to do auto reverse, it kind of gets jammed, and you have to give it a bit of help from the back of it. So you have to basically move these wheels where the belts are. There you go. So that's my approach now, is just to apply a bit of heat to this and to add a little bit of new grease, just a very small amount, and in the hope that it frees it up a little bit. I'm pleased to report this now seems to be working. So I've applied heat and a little bit of grease down here. There's a little kind of cog underneath, and there's also a little bit where it kind of sits on top and spins. That's the auto reverse head. So that seems to have made a big difference now. So if I show you, it's now playing. And there you have it, auto reverse, forwards, auto reverse. So I would recommend really kind of exercising the deck if you've got a similar issue to this, because it's probably where it hasn't been used for a long time, it's seized up. This actual deck's been in a cold garage over winter, so that probably hasn't helped things. So if I go back to forwards and stop, and then rewind, stop, forwards. The thing I noticed with this deck as well is it will play the tape and the CD at the same time, so it does allow you to have some mixing capability there, so you can have two outputs going into one basically. So anyway, that's the tape side now fixed, so it just needs to have the cover put back on here and the screws put back in.